How I got a girlfriend on Hinge, and all you need to do is copy me to get results just like this. So here's what I'll be breaking down for you. The profile that we used to get this girl, the girl's profile, and then the texting breakdown. So let's go straight into it. Starting off with the profile, Max is the guy behind the profile. Max is the one that got the girlfriend. He's a guy that works on the Innovate team. He's the mastermind behind all the playbooks. Here's his profile. Here are his pictures. I'm going to be breaking them down for you now. So we have a nice niche hobby of Max cooking. As you can see, high sexual energy, looks really good and he looks attractive. It's a hobby that girls desire, a man that can cook. This is high status. Then his next picture is a visualization. It's going to basically send a signal of what the girl is going to see when they wake up next to Max. So that's a very powerful image because it's setting the scene and the story up right. Then a nice little thirst trap. So obviously, you know, this is showing off some assets of obviously, you know, what he's like in a high sexual environment. Then what it's going to look like to look at Max from obviously on a date perspective. Then something more playful that comes off is obviously something as lighthearted, a little bit fun, plushies, because girls have a lot of plushies. And then the last one, a very high sexual image of obviously him being shirtless again. Now, moving on to the next tip over here, turn off your top photos because Hinge doesn't know jack shit about your fucking pictures. So do not have that shit on. Next one, don't verify, messes you up long term. And if you ever get banned on Hinge, you'll never be able to get on the app ever again if you verified, unless obviously you have specific methods that we do. But even then, it's God forbid, it's very hard. So don't do it. It's not worth it. Next one, prompts, unusual skills. We put crazy sense of direction because girls do not know where they're going. They are lost. They're Next one, I'm weirdly attracted to rave girls. This is going to show obviously that he's attracted to degenerate women. He's going to get degenerate girls. You can copy these prompts if you want to obviously get similar results to Max, or you can use our website. We have some prompts on there as well, free. You don't need to worry about signing up or anything like that. Next one, dating me like a golden retriever, telling the girl what she wants to hear. Nothing too crazy. It's just, you know, a personality type girls are chasing, right? And for the profile, that's pretty much it. Really straightforward and simple stuff. All you have to do is just try that and boom, moving on to the next stage, the girl. Okay, so you have this Pakistani girl, as you can see over here, called Ishma. We're going to break her profile down. As you can see, she seems very conservative, not too slutty off the bat. Her photos are very basic, you know, they're just NPC selfies. They're nothing out of the extraordinary. She comes off as a biryani bunny, as Max likes to call it. This is kind of how we're going to flirt with her and we're going to use it against her. Some of her prompts are very basic stuff. My most irrational fear, the dark. I'll be honest with you, she probably got that off ChatGPT. Very boring stuff. Another niche hobby as well. Together we could watch anime and play mini golf. Just a niche hobby that, you know, she's into some weird stuff that is just nothing, you know, too unique, right? It's just whatever. So my read on her is she's a brat. Internally, she's submissive and shy. Her personality, just a basic NPC. Literally just the most basic Pakistani girl you can get. She's probably got high standards as well. I would know being an Afghan guy. You know, I've dated a few girls around that area. And moving on into her interests, it's just niche. It's nothing too crazy. And the reason why we're going into this is because we're going to use this to be able to text her. We're going to be able to use this to analyze and break down what we need to say to get things flowing, to get incredible results in the texting stages. So here's number 3, the texting stage. Starting off, Ishmael liked Max's picture, as you can see over here from the profile originally. That's the importance of having good pictures because the girls will like you first, and then the conversation starts from there. Now, because she liked the picture, that's her sending them first message, high interest. Now it's down to Max to obviously continue conversation from here. So what we do is we use a universal open on her, nothing too crazy because we haven't read into it too hardcore yet. We want to start off with something that is guaranteed to work, is a classic, and it's just safe. That's it. Some girls you can say bolder messages like I have on my current Tinder accounts, as you can see over here. But with Ishma, we want to play it safe because she comes off as basic NPC. Now, obviously, slight interest from her, nothing too crazy. We're just working our way in and it's going to progress from that. And as you can see, the conversation does get crazier and crazier and more high interest as we progress through the video. So you'll see how it just goes from 180. It's very interesting. Anyway, next up, we close the pickup line by saying, meet me with my arms around you. Really straightforward stuff. And she slides in a nice basic reply, nothing too crazy. A lot of guys at this point in time would be like, I would probably leave this conversation. This girl's not interested. Not true. She's not going to give you her entire absolute commitment yet. It's literally a couple messages in. All we have to do is just take lead. Okay, we want to continue the line. That's what the framework's invented for. So would you prefer my arms around your waist or neck? The move here is we're trying to see if she's a whore or not. If she says waist, she's a conservative girl. If she says neck, she's a slutty girl. If she says both, then that means that it's a bit of both. And obviously you have to like see where you can navigate through it. And you obviously just got to play it in a way where it's, you know, not too crazy. When girls say both, it actually makes things a little bit trickier. So as you can see, there's dry intention here. She isn't saying anything like crazy outrageous, like, oh, that's so hot or whatever. She's just saying, I want both. That's it. Very basic, simple reply. This is how you deal with a girl that starts off with low interest. We say to her, I love that. I was thinking waist in public and neck for my eyes. And this is going to create a nice visualization. Obviously, we're trying to sell her the dream. We're trying to set some sort of intent in her head. As you can see, her replies start to improve and she's still a little bit dry, but the interest has grown massively. As you can see, the momentum is there. It's getting better and better. Now, what we're going to do next is try and figure things more about her. So we say to her, are you a dinner or cocktails girl? She says dinner, because it shows that she's obviously a girl that is very conservative. She doesn't really like drinking. Girls that typically like drinking are usually a little bit more degenerate. You know, they like things that are a little bit more. But in this regard, Ishma is obviously a little bit more conservative, and using that information against her, we can work our way forwards and go from there. So the next one, what we're going to do here is we're going to suggest the date as well, because we want to see that in, because at this point in time, we know what she wants. We're going to say to her, we're going to go for a romantic dinner. We're not going to say drinks, because obviously that's out of the question. She doesn't want to do that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a nice scenery, aesthetic background environment or whatever. When it comes to the actual date itself, it's going to be something that she wants, which is dinner. As you can see, basic interest, she's happy. At this point in time, you don't want to keep the conversation running this much longer on the apps, because a lot of guys make the mistake with low interest girls where they keep the conversation going, trying to salvage the conversation there. What the are you doing? Are you fucking dumb? Close the girl on the fucking app, bro, because the real chances of you converting and changing her is over WhatsApp and on a real date. So get the fucking number, close this shit down. As you can see, the number is successfully acquired, and then boom, we progress onto WhatsApp, which is where they actually set the date. And as you can see, they go on a nice lovely date and the entire situation changes. She goes from being very dry to being very high interest, and this is where it all begins and starts. This is where the technical fun stuff begins. So let's continue with how we started it with it. Okay, so we have Ishma over here now from Hinge onto WhatsApp. So we start with basic logistics. We say to her and introduce ourselves with authority and set the status. As you can see, we say to it, it's Max from Hinge. We want to make sure we clarify that. And we say, what am I saving you as on here? So we're trying to seed something here. We're trying to create a grounds to flirt with her. So this is a flirting escalation. And she says, just save it as Ishmael. Now, this is a typical response. Most girls are obviously going to say this because they're not too romantic. Some of them, especially with the vibes she started off. Now, Max obviously wants to go with something crazy. A lot of you are thinking future wifey, something like that, right? If you can tease a girl and go more unique, you should say something like biryani bunny. Sometimes I like to say sex slave. There's some crazy things you can say to a girl and you can change it up, because I think future wifey is getting overplayed a little bit. So you should make it a bit more unique. So we went with biryani bunny because she's obviously a Pakistani girl. Now she says biryani what? Obviously she's quite shocked. Teasing worked. Obviously this is kind of the effect that you want, you know, that makes her question what the fuck. And of course you have to stand your fucking ground and say you heard me, right? If you hold your frame, right, as you can see over here, I'm not wrong there, am I? It's going to increase her respect for you. Now of course she's impressed by the boldness. It worked out very well for Max, and that is what happens when you stick to your ground. Now she's saying, obviously she's denying him quite playfully, it's just a shit test. A lot of guys would fold and cave. Do not fold. If you fold, you're going to lose the girl and she's going to lose respect for you. You may not lose her immediately, but the effects will affect you as you progress through the conversation. Now of course we want to stand our ground, keep going, saying that, you know, it has a nice ring to it and we don't want to budge. And she says, listen Max, I'm not like these white girls. Now she's disliking what she's being compared to, but deep down she is attracted to this frame, because a lot of guys are a little bit soft, they're a little bit of a loser, they don't want to say bold things like this. This is a shit test. Don't give in. Now she's obviously trying to compare herself to us white girls. Pakistani girls have a big ego. As an Afghani guy, you know, I know firsthand more than anyone else, right? Anyway, we say to her, I can definitely tell you're unique. We want to validate her because of course we don't want to backtrack on what we said, but we want to soften the blow, because then it makes the message stand out a little bit less in a negative light. So this is softening out the blow. Then what we're going to do next is still keep the boldness in and the arrogance, because it holds the frame. We say to her, you must think I'm hot though, since you haven't blocked me yet. This is how you can win a girl over, by making it obvious to her that you hold the cards. And over here, she does another test where she says hot, yes, but personality is still yet to be determined. So she's admitting that Max is attractive, his profile is good, but she's still playing on the personality thing. So far, Max has displayed pretty solid personality compared to her, but that's just how conversations go with girls, guys. If you obviously want the girl to do all the talking, you're talking to a guy, not a fucking girl. What we say here next on the next stage is, oh, well, I know how I can help determine that. And this is pretty much where we're trying to seed to close a date, because we want to try and get a date going. That is the ultimate goal here. Now she says, what would that be, Mr. Obviously? And this is where we're going to start revealing things and talking about that dinner date we promised her on Hinge. So this is where we start seeding in promises, some sort of expectations we're going to live up to, because when you set expectations, you live up to them, girls will trust you. And this is why it's so important to make these kind kind of remarks that you can easily live up to, right? Now over here, she starts throwing in more tests. She says, I need to know more about you first. Of course, you know, high self-respect from a Pakistani girl, biryani bunny. It's just completely normal stuff from them. Now she's over here like, what if you murder me? Absolutely natural thing as well to be worried about as a girl that is probably like 5'4" or whatever, right? You know, she's like, what, 40 kilos? I don't even know what that is in American pounds. Just put it on screen. But the point is, she's tiny. Of course, she's gonna be worried of, you know, a guy that is a lot bigger than her. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna playfully validate her and say, of course, we'll talk more silly because you wanna reassure her and make her feel comfort. Because if you rush her in this stage, it's actually stupid. This is somewhere where you wanna actually make sure that she feels safe because it's important. Now, what we're gonna do over here is we're gonna play it into a little bit of a humanistic side, which is a little bit evil, sociopathic, or narcissistic, whatever you wanna call it, and say, I'm not Dexter, but I need to know something first. So what are we doing here? We're using a common movie trope slash theme that a lot of people have watched, especially girls, and make it look like we're more human. Because so far, this texting conversation looks very scripted, right? For the girl, she's like, this guy's just flirting nonstop. It comes off as a bit AI and a bit, you know, lack of personality. But as soon as you start mentioning niche movies and start mentioning things that obviously, you know, indicate there's a personality greater than the charming remarks and flirting, that's when things become real and Max looks like a human and not a sociopathic narcissist that uses obviously the playbooks and the Deni Ops scripts to game her. Now she's saying, okay, good, to need to get you know first. Now, as you can see over here, Max did another clever thing as well. He said, I need to know something first. And this is a nice way to start intriguing her curiosity, kind of putting suspense there. So I'm going to put a nice little suspense here. I'm going to put sus. I know that's a brain rot term, but it just means suspense. And of course, the suspense is built up. She's saying, what is that? She wants to know what it is. As a matter of fact, she ignored the Dexter part because obviously the grounds are quite tense right now. She's thinking that Max is a murderer. She wants to get to know him. And Max is going to move forward with something that is playful. Now Max is obviously validating her again, and then this is where we start playing into a niche and say, can you cook biryani? Then of course it's a little bit racist, you know, but I don't really give a you know, it's whatever to game the girls. Now she says the best, of course, she takes it lightly. She doesn't think it's an insult at all, and it works really well for him. Now, of course, she says over here, don't think you could hack it though. A little bit of stereotypes, obviously, you know, German white boy like Max not being able to handle the spice. Now she's validating herself and she wants to prove herself, and she's returning the energy. Now the conversation is going down in a good momentum so far, and the conversation is improving massively, and the energy is skyrocketing. Now Max, of course, says I'm pretty good with spice. Of course, he got trained by me because I'm obviously a specialist Afghan cook. I make girls crazy dishes. But moving forwards, let's go on to the next one. Now, of course, Max says, I think you underestimate over here. Again, playing into a niche, setting the grounds up. And she says, well, see how you like Granny's green chilies. Of course, you know, she's giving off a little bit of humor and jokes. This is the playful teasing that obviously we want to set in the framework. So what we say over here is trying to kill your future husband already. We're playfully teasing. We're going back on the whole part of obviously her talking about, you know, being murdered by Max, as you can see up here. And what we're doing is we're flipping the script to make Max look more vulnerable and more playful and innocent, because it's a nice contrast, because obviously the girl is usually the one that is vulnerable, but now Max is flipping it and she's saying, of course I can take advantage here. Now this is playful teasing and sexual energy, right? This indicates that she wants to obviously use him in certain ways that we won't discuss on YouTube, right? Now, of course, now the next thing Max is gonna say, I have to keep my guard up, just again, playfully going into the frame, and she's saying, I'll be sure to break it down. I have my methods. So it's just going very smoothly so far. And what we're going to do next is just keep going through with it. Now we say, I'll break your guard down before you can do that. We want to obviously flip the energy here. We're mirroring what she's said to try and keep the momentum going. And then what happens here is she doesn't reply for a little bit, and then boom, she comes back out now and she says, sorry for the late reply, I've been very busy. Sometimes girls don't reply to you straight away. Completely fucking normal. They have their own lives. A lot of guys are losers and think, you know, oh, she didn't reply to me. Dude, you're messaging her at 2 p.m. She's probably at work, bro. Okay, be patient. Now, of course, she's interested in the test that we set up earlier in that message originally, as you can see over here, the one that we mentioned with Max saying that, you know, he will break his guard down. She wants to see what will happen with that. She's setting the thing up. Now Max says, of course, I've been working, shows that he has a life, and it shows that he's not a loser. Now what we do over here is we continue with the frame and not specify it to let her mind be filled with fantasies. This could be sexual, this could be something innocent. It doesn't matter what it is. All we're doing here is saying, don't tempt me. Very straightforward stuff. Now she's saying, you're playing games with me now, aren't you? Of course, she is able to tell what we're doing, and she is trying to set a shit test. What we do is we sort of backtrack and say, I wouldn't dare, not with my future wifey, because of course she's a little bit worried. We want to set the comfort grounds once again, and she says, I know your little secrets. Now this confirms that she's just testing him. It's a little bit of a shit test. Nothing to worry about. It's something that you just have to playfully handle. Now what we do is we progress over here and we just give off some playful teasing, saying things like, damn, you know my methods, can't keep anything from you. And she keeps folding into that frame saying, I'm super smart, validating herself, you know, playful language, silly. And then we start talking about her being an intelligent girl and having to show that obviously on the date. And she says, I don't think you're ready for my big brain. Again, she's speaking like quite a young girl, you know, I mean, that's what you'd expect from a girl that is, you know, in her late 18 years, you know, 19 or whatever. She wants to obviously know where we're going as well. Really good sign, because this means that the date is actually a key priority for her. She asked, not us, which is really good. Now, Max over here starts pushing for the date. As you can see, this is some just logistic stuff about flirting. You can read that if you want. I'm just going to move to more important text. And we're going to start focusing on the date, where we start talking about going for dinner and the escape room as well, because that is what we promised her. We live up to our promises. We're men. Remember, we make a promise and we keep that shit, and we progress forwards and we start going. So this obviously is just basic stuff. This text message over here is just making sure that we're real, because now she is obviously going to have a date and she wants to see whether this, Max is a real person and whether it's a catfish or not, right? Because now that the date is actually happening, she wants to be reassured that nothing is suspiciously weird or, weird, right? And of course, you send a nice first trap that is a increase in sexual ascension. So Max went above and beyond, sent a nice little first trap. This is going to boost his attraction massively. And she gave him an excuse to send this type of picture. Now, of course, we asked for a picture back from her, and this is what's going to happen. She says, oh, hot, I do have a thing for abs. As you can see, there's just a little bit of abs there. Max was obviously in his less lean, chiseled out phase, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, she still likes it. So you don't need to be some big jacked guy. And bear in mind, Max's profile pictures are all AI generated. So you don't need to get all insecure in my face about, oh, you need to be handsome to get results. Shut the up, go watch the Chud video. That guy got fucking sick results, bro. And the video about the other guy as well, the last video. Anyway, moving forwards, she sent something in return. Nothing too crazy. You can see a bit of cleavage, but is it anything that's, crazy? Not really. So what Max does over here is, in response to her abs comment, he's obviously trying to lead to a sexual ascension. What we're talking about is obviously her laying his head on them. If you're good, trying to set a submissive, daddy framework pleasing thing. Now over here, we validate her selfie, and we obviously tell her we can make it better. And what happens over here is she starts falling into the frame again. She says, oh, you would like that. She wants to flip it. She doesn't want to give it up. She's being a bit bratty. Nothing too crazy, to be honest with you. And then what we do over here is we just continue to progress. She says, I don't think there is a way, but go on. This is just her setting that bright framework, like I said. And then what we do is we progress with the conversation here, and we say it's more for your benefit than mine. We're just reminding her, you want to fucking rest on our abs, not it's going to benefit us, right? We're the man of value. That's what you want to set. Now over here, Max obviously goes into another flirtatious framework, say, by taking it again with me next to you. So we're just, creating that sexual energy. And she says, oh, is it? But that would be for your pleasure. She's just being a brat. A lot of girls are like this because it's just a sexual thing. If you haven't seen it before, you should Google what a brat is, because some girls have a brat kink and you just got to know how to deal with it. Now over here, she's giving in slightly. As you can see, we would look cute together. She's slowly falling into the frame, and that's exactly what we want. Now we're just going to obviously say some logistic things like, I'm sure you wouldn't mind. And then we want to talk about, something that is a little bit more bold again, and move on to a framework saying, yeah, it would be like white and milk chocolate, right? Obviously talking about the skin color, basic stuff. And as you can see, she's receptive. As you can see, she's obviously responding quite well to the sexual ascension, as you can see over here. So working really well. She says, depends what do I get in return. Brat kink, again, wanting something in return, a submissive trait. Now she says, you're crazy, you know that, but I agree. So it's just showing the boldness is working. And that is why it's so important to hold frame. Now, of course, we keep pushing for a sexual ascension, as you can see, and we start talking about obviously having something big in her mouth, just talking about head basically, right? And what over here we do is we, again, hold our ground and say, I'll be the good kind of crazy, some spice to your life, right? We're just holding that bold aspect that she really liked so far, because if you change from that, it's going to show that you're a loser. Now, next up over here, she starts to pull away a little bit. We found her limit, as you can see. Her, no, what do I get in return for that? So obviously she's not feeling too crazy about it, but she hasn't and said, oh, I'm not that type of girl type shit. Now over here, she says, trust me, I don't need spice. Causes babe, which shows obviously interest, is showing that she's into obviously Max, and shows that she has interest, but is a little bit of a pull away. So we need to obviously work with this. Now, as you can see, she pulled away from being dominated, so she will probably likely enjoy this one instead. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say something that is the reverse of giving head, obviously, sorry, something that is the reverse of her giving head, instead giving her pleasure instead, right? So we're going to say, I'll eat you out, basically, baby, and make you obviously orgasm all over my mouth. Just something that is a little bit of a better frame for a girl like this, because every girl is different in what they want. That is why it's so important. You can't just copy paste my messages exactly. You have to use a little bit of brains. So yeah, we're just going to progress with the conversation. As you can see, she says, don't keep promises you can't keep now. She's interested quite a lot in the offer. We nailed that on the head. She isn't the type of girl that is too conservative. She will give in, as so long as you obviously know what you're doing and what you're saying. And she says, I'm as spicy as it gets, just more, high sexual energy of flirting. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to show to her we're not a virgin, and say I have experience to back it, because you want to make sure a girl knows that you're being chosen by other women. And boom, we're turning the boring spice thread into something more sexual energy. So we're going to say something like, maybe you'll be the spice to my life then, who knows. Now she didn't say no here, so we can keep pushing. She's saying, really saying your head game here, aren't you? So again, it's just nice and simple and straightforward. It's just her giving in. She just didn't say no, but she didn't say yes massively. She's just, giving something. What she did over here is very clever. She obviously teased her own sexual ascension or framework, saying, I just washed my cat, insinuating obviously her genitals, right? So this is where things obviously start to progress. We're going to actually take the bait, of course, because we want to give her a little bit of something, being a try-hard fucking texting guru, whatever, right? It's cool and all, but you got to be a bit fucking human, and you got to fucking ask to see it. Obviously, she's going to fucking send her cat, If you think otherwise, you're a moron, but you got to just act like a normal person. Just say, let me see it, As you can see, surprise, surprise, she sent pictures of a fucking cat. So yeah. Now her interest is also sky high. It's the time to close a date. Like I said, some pictures of a cat. It's just her teasing, and she says, get your head out of the gutter, silly. So yeah, what did you expect? It's better to sometimes let the girl win than lose, right? In this scenario, this is the right move, because he said to her, sure, you're probably gonna show me your fucking cat. It's just gonna sour the mood. It's like when you send a pickup line to a girl and she's like, oh, I've heard this countless times before already. Don't be that fucking loser, bro. Anyway, what we're gonna do is just keep playing into the room, saying talk is cheap, I'd rather show you. So of course we're setting the actions up, seeding the date, and boom, this is where the date is gonna happen, because she's saying wine and dine me first. Of course, this is just natural progression, and she's saying, I know what you like, mister. So, we kind of playfully teased her back, saying, you don't even know what I was thinking, when you should get your head out the gutter. And then boom, we're heading for a logistics close, asking for her schedule, and then we just want to reassure that we're not going to use her for short-term sex. And she opens up her schedule, saying, I'm pretty free this week. Good sign. She's giving up obviously her whole week to us, rather than just set days making it difficult. She's making it fucking easy. And as you can see over here, she says, oh, that's what they all say. She's showing a little bit of trust issues. That's fine. We just want to set a bold promise again, because the more promises you make, the more someone will obviously want to see it happen. Make sure it's not too good to be true. You've got to find that balance. So now we're setting the date over here on Thursday, as you can see, and boom, this is going to set a firm time frame, and she agrees to it over here. We got the day booked in. Now comes in the time and location. So she's obviously just, saying, we'll see, nothing too crazy. And then boom, we're going to excite the fuck out of her. We're going to make sure that, she's going to be, prepared for it, right? We want to make her think about it the whole fucking week. Now, Max also says over here, we're going to the gym, gives them an excuse to send some pictures. As you can see over here, she's, of course, need to see if you live up to the hype. The promise thing that I mentioned is working. That's a good strategy. And as you can see, she wants to see pictures of Max, an excuse for him to send pictures without looking like a dickhead. Now she's sending pictures as well of herself, saying, I've been chilling with my cat. Shows high interest. She comes off as obviously a girl that's a little bit more kept together than a girl that is, straight up sending nudes and, sending crazy messages like this back to back. Anyway, so moving on to the next part of this message thread over here. So we just keep the promise thing working. We say to her, just tired, I'll show you in person. So we teased her. We didn't want to send any picture to her just yet. We want to withhold those types of things, and it's going to build up interest. Now this is obviously going to be just high interest relationship type of logistics talk, nothing too crazy. As you can see, it's not anything really worth analyzing. I'll just let you read it, and then I'll just scroll to the next one. So I'm just going to keep fast forwarding. As you can see over here, you can just read it at your own pace. It's just mainly talk before the date, because it's important to talk to a girl in between the dates so she doesn't ghost you. Because if you're a moron and you set a date and you just don't talk to her until the day of the date, she's not going to show up. It is so important that you just talk to her about her life as you work your way up to the date. Every girl I match with, I set a date with her, and I just still continue to talk to her until you her. You kind of have to talk to her on a daily basis. It's just basic relationship talk. It's basic practice, right? This is really important. And the thing is, this is the hard part, bro, because if you mess up this stage, which is very fucking easy to mess up, you can lose the girl. The way Max is texting her, it's like as if you're on fucking ice. You're literally you're walking on eggshells. It's very hard, and it's really important you get it down right. So make sure you can screenshot those. You can use it for reference to copy for your own texting conversation with a girl. Now moving to the next one, this is where we actually get back to the logistics of the date, and we say, fair enough, hope you're excited. I will pick you up at 7 and we'll go to an escape room and get food. And she pretty much agrees to what's going on. She's happy enough, and she wants everything to happen, and she's talking about things being hectic. She's looking for comfort, and Max is obviously, saying things like, thought you weren't going to show up there. It's just, setting a reassuring guilt framework. She's going to feel guilty. She's apologizing, sorry about the leg, I'm just super sleepy, ready, this and garbage. It's just date logistics, and we obviously want to give her a little bit of room, saying I can meet you at 8 as well, because it's better to have her show up on time than late, giving her leeway. And we say to her, wear something cute so we can match. Sometimes I like to go with dress, sometimes I like to go with, an appropriate outfit for the venue. Now she's obviously, just working with it really well. She's getting stressful. This is where the pressure is up on the girl, and she sends obviously her address as well. So Max is gonna pick her up, and she asks, what car are you coming in? Obviously Max says something like, I'll be in a red coupe. Nothing too specific, because you don't want to come off as a dickhead. Imagine I said to a girl, oh, I'm coming in a nice AMG or M3 comp or whatever. Like, shut the fuck up, bro. You're a fucking moist loser, bro. Just say you're coming in a white SUV or a red fucking saloon. That's it, bro. Don't be that guy that is like, I'm coming in an AMG or an M competition or Audi Honest. No girl cares about what car you drive. Just fucking tell her something vague. Anyway, that's set in motion and set and done. Don't be the clown that flexes too much status. You're gonna come off as a dick. Anyway, she says, I'm ready. Just more logistic stuff. And we say, all right, girly, I'll leave you in a bit. See you soon. And that is just pretty much the progression. Now, Max obviously just reaffirms that he's showing up and he was late due to an errand. And boom, this is where things are starting to, you know, happen. This is where the date happens. As you can see, the little time gap, as you can see over here, was the actual date itself. The date of the escape room with those pictures you saw, you know, up there, and I'll show it to you again. So some more logistics talk, saying thanks for last night, get home safe. She says, just get home, you should send me those pics from yesterday. So what we're doing is we're getting commitment out of her to send pictures of herself and Max together. And she's saying, are you more tired today? I just passed out when you left. So, you know, she's looking for a little bit of comfort and reassurance. She's opening up, being submissive. And these are obviously the pictures from the date as well. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, you know, no pictures of her getting choked. Max isn't really that type of guy. He isn't like me, bro. I get pictures of me choking beanies. Anyway, moving on, as you can see, date results over here. She sends them back herself, and it's just really straightforward stuff. Now, the rest of what I'm about to show you is just cute relationship garbage. You know, it's just stuff I'm going to speed run. You can pause and read it if you like. It's just pretty much leading up to the second date, as you can see over here. It's just things that are really boring. I know some people fucking love, you know, seeing this sort of stuff, but the novelty wears off when you talk to like a good couple hundred girls, bro. As you can see over here, it's just more logistics and more things that are just boring, right? You know, it's just all leading into that nice second date that, you know, Max is going to end up sleeping with her with, right? And it's just all really straightforward. I'm scrolling as slow as I can just so you can obviously read the conversation, just pause it at your own pace. But yeah, this is what it looks like texting a girl after the date. It's really boring, and it's not too hard to fuck up. Like, you actually have to be a moron to fuck this up, bro. Like, you actually have to be a moron. You just have to talk to her like a normal human being and just, you know, talk to her about logistics, life, set a date, tease her, say things like, oh, I can still taste your lips and whatnot. And boom, this is when the next date is, you know, starts to get set over here. And Max is obviously making some things, you know, in place to make sure it happens. And again, you know, just more talking in between the date, nothing too crazy. And boom, this is where the second date occurs. And then on the second date, you know, they actually end up having sex together, and it ends up going really well for her. Just really straightforward and simple stuff. Now, obviously, if you want me to run your Hinge and get your fucking girlfriend on Tinder or whatever it may be, you know what to do. You know how to contact us. We're the experts and we're the best in the game. This is what we thrive at. Yeah, that's as simple as it gets. This is how you get a girlfriend, so that you're not a fucking lonely guy anymore, and you get beanies and you can clout like my other guys that I work with. Anyway, see you in the next fucking video, guys. Sayonara.